from Kyiv not long ago, it does seem that the capital city of Ukraine is, under threat of being captured. And I'm wondering how tangible the threat is and what you're hearing on the ground.
Yeah, it's in jeopardy, obviously. In terms of what I'm hearing right now, it's very quiet. You look out around the expanse of the Ukrainian capital right here behind me, and it seems very calm. There's nobody on the streets. You can't hear jets in the sky. You certainly can't hear the thundering airstrikes that we witnessed 24 hours ago. But I know for a fact that just 15 miles away, there is an air base which has been taken over by Russian special forces. And there are other air bases and strategic locations around the capital city as well, where Russian forces are positioned, creating an airhead, an air corridor, if you like, so that more troops, presumably, and armor can be brought in. And so it opens up the whole question of what does Vladimir Putin have in store for this capital city. The concern amongst Ukrainian officials, and they say this quite openly now, is that they think within the next few days that Russian forces will have surrounded the capital with the intention of taking it over, with the intention of toppling the Ukrainian leadership and installing instead a pro-Moscow puppet government. Well, earlier I witnessed that process, perhaps firsthand, the start of it at least. I confronted, or had an encounter, an unexpected one, with the Russian forces. And first of all, we thought they were Ukrainian troops, and I went out to talk to them outside the air base that had been, where there had been fighting, where Russian troops had landed. I asked them who was in charge. Was it the Russians or the Ukrainians? And they said it's the Russians. And I said, well, where are the Russians there? Where are they now? And they said, we're the Russians. And so it was at that point that we realized that we'd come in direct contact with that forward special airborne forces that had been sent by Moscow to take over those strategic locations. There was a brief firefight in the area as Ukrainian military tried to stage a counter-offensive. But when we left that location, it was the Russians still very much in control. And that still hangs a big question over what will come next for Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, and of course for the rest of the country, where there are things like that happening, clashes like that happening across the nation. Jake.
All right, Matthew Chance in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Nick Robertson's in Moscow, Russia for us. Nick, you just heard Matthew hypothesizing as what comes next. Do the Russians create a multi-100,000 troop occupation? Or is there something else they can do? Can they install a puppet government, a puppet regime, and recognize the quote-unquote independence of that country, as they did, I believe, in the breakaway republics of Russia. I'm sorry, of Georgia.
Yeah, Jake, I think for the language that we've heard from the Kremlin so far, the way that they talk about denazification, this is something without substance that they level at the government in Kyiv right now. So I think it's very clear from the Kremlin they absolutely intend to replace the government of President Zelensky. What they plan to do in that place, in place of him, is anyone's guess. But it would seem only reasonable to think that they would have to put somebody in charge of the country. Who that person isn't clear. Certainly the British government about 4 weeks ago outed the name of one Ukrainian politician who they thought Russian authorities wanted to install as president of the country, whether that's changed subsequently. The Kremlin at the moment is saying that they're not intending to have an occupation in the country, that they're intending only to denazify, as they call it, and hit the military installations. What we have witnessed here in Moscow this evening are ongoing protests for several hours, anti-war protests. I can tell you more than 800 people have been arrested in Moscow this evening. More than 1,500 people arrested in different protests across Russia in 50 different cities. So the mood on the streets here in Russia, you have the police who are standing by here still in this central Moscow location, telling people that they do not have the right to gather here, they do not have the right to hold an anti-war protest. Government officials have been warning them if they do, they could face prosecution. If they're prosecuted and found guilty, then that would be a criminal record. That criminal record could hurt them further on in their lives. So this is very tough warning from the government for the citizens of their country. If they plan their own leadership in Ukraine, this is hypothesis, if they plan to control the country of Ukraine, the citizens of Ukraine can therefore expect to have the democracy that they've been enjoying transferred into an autocracy like this, where the population doesn't have the right of protest as they do in Ukraine at the moment, doesn't have the right to come out and voice their own opinions, doesn't have the opportunity to vote in free, fair and independent elections. Precisely how the Kremlin here intends to manage that isn't clear, but it's absolutely clear in their own country they will brook no dissent. People we've seen being arrested today, harshly arrested, thrown up against the side of police vans, posters taken off of them that have said, stop the war. There is a hard press in Moscow to force the message at home that they intend to force through this war in Ukraine.